Okay, so kicking off with Sunday changeover day. It's Victoria sponge. Okay, now a normal Victoria sponge you'd make with flour and eggs and butter. This is a yogurt cake recipe because it works much better at altitude. Okay, it's a famous yogurt cake recipe that's been made in the Alps for years. So it's pretty straightforward. I've got 4 eggs, a tub of yogurt, natural yogurt, and then I'm going to use the tub to measure in 1 pot full of sugar, 3 flour, 1 pot full of oil, sunflower oil, okay, a little splash of vanilla, and then the baking powder. Now baking powder is quite an important thing. It says 2 teaspoons of baking powder, but a teaspoon might look like this, or it might look like this. Okay, now the problem with too much baking powder at altitude, the cake has to fight less to rise at altitude because there's less air pressure than it would at sea level. Okay, so if you have too much baking powder, your cakes can go up too fast, too big, and explode and then sink. Okay, so if that happens, that's probably the reason why. Okay, so I'm going to be quite careful about just putting 2 small teaspoon of baking powder and not overdoing it. The other thing to keep in mind is that it's a good idea to make these and get them straight into the preheated oven. Okay, so the first thing you do is turn the oven on. Make sure it's hot when it goes in, because once baking powder goes into a mix, if it sits around for too long, it's going to start working its magic and sort of the cake will start bubbling, and it will once it goes into the oven, it won't work properly. Okay, so I'm going to give this a mix up. It's not like a huge mix with an electric whisk. We're not trying to beat lots of air in like you would with other sponges. I just want a nice and smooth batter. The baking powder is is the ingredient that's going to make it rise. So once all the lumps are out, got my lined tin. Now these have a tendency to lift in the middle, so something that's quite good to do is try and push the mix out, swirl it around a bit, push the mix out to the edge. And then into the oven. Okay. Okay, fast forward and my cake is done. I can just touch the top and it feels like it's cooked through, like it isn't spongy or doughy in the middle still. And you can see it starts to come away from the edges as well. If you're in any doubt, put the knife in, pull it out, and it should come out really clean without any dough or batter stuck to it still. Okay, the joy of using the paper is that it should just pop out nice and easy. Now this is a cake. This is a cake that needs to come straight out of the oven and out of the tin and cooled to stop it from going soggy. Okay, you can see all that steam coming out. Put it on a rack and let it cool, and then once it's properly cold, we can cut it and ice it. Okay, finishing this Vicky sponge. To start with the cream, I've got a little bit of icing sugar to sweeten it, a little bit of vanilla, make it nice and tasty. And I've got the rest of my mascarpone. Now, most of the mascarpone will go into carrot cake, but a little bit of mascarpone into the whipping cream will mean that it's really nice and stable and thick. Okay, so at least just a good spoonful. Let's say like 25% in here and the other 3/4 into your carrot cake. And the thing is, British cream whips up really nicely and rich. French cream tends to be around at the most 35% fat, whereas double cream in the UK is 48%, which is why it's so delicious. But anyway, this cream, sometimes you struggle to whip it up nicely. So if you add a bit of mascarpone, brings the fat content up, and then it will whisk up quite easily. That one. And again, a deep bowl, deep rounded bowl is the one you want. Stop it flicking everywhere. Okay, so that took quite a while. Compared, if it was in the UK with double cream, it would just be a matter of almost less than a minute and boom, it's done. Whereas I want it to be nice and thick like this. These are quite small beaters. If you've got bigger beaters, it will happen a bit quicker for you. But either way, it's got to be nice and thick and stable like that. Now take a knife. These little tomato knives are great. They're razor sharp, serrated knives, and I'm just going to cut it just below that. Trim that off. Try and get it in half. Cut my way through and work my way around like this. If you put the knife into the middle, you can easily gauge and cut it fairly evenly through the center by turning the cake around like this. Okay, that piece off. Nicely cooked in the middle. Now loads of jam. Now normally we'd be in with a layer of jam and some strawberries around the side. Start the season and no one's got any strawberries yet, so we'll use raspberries instead. But I really want a decent amount of jam in there, so that it's nice and nice and moist by the time it's cut. It's quite important to do this as close as possible to serving it, which is why we serve these on a Sunday. Okay, so the cream doesn't sit out on the table all day. Now I'm going to pipe a little bit on the top actually, so I might as well do the inside as well. You could just use a spoon to fill the middle, but as I'm using a piping bag anyway. I'll tell you what, I guess I'll start. I'm going to dust this again. This whole thing of dusting something off the plate, so it doesn't just look like you've doused the whole thing in icing sugar. That's a good idea. I want to put some of this on the top. I'll start with that first, and then I'm not going to run out. I know I'm not going to run out. Okay, so around the outside first. So same thing, you know, you can make the cream stretch in the center if you have to. Okay, I'm going to go around and put some raspberries. You'll be able to just slice up some strawberries, that's what we'll have coming. Put that one on the top. My meringues. Okay, something like that.